Hello, seventh graders. I am so glad to be talking to you today. We're going to talk a little bit about research and determining fact from fiction. I think that it's a really important skill, and we need to learn how to do it, particularly in this day and age and this time frame. That researching fact from fiction is really super important, and it's kind of difficult sometimes to tell what is what. I want to tell you a little story about the Mexico City earthquake of 2018. The hashtag Frida went really crazy during this time. What happened was that the story goes that a little girl named Frida was lost in the earthquake, but they could hear her tapping. They could hear her making sounds and that she was alive. And then all these people are like, oh, we need to save this little girl. That she needs help. She needs something. She needs. And so donations rolled in for her. People were showing up to help dig for her. And all of this stuff was happening with Frida. And come to find out, it was just false. The hashtag was not real. So you can't just go on social media and what is happening and what people are saying and believe that it is true. So Fox found in 2018 that the truth takes about 6 times as long as a falsehood to reach about 1,500 people. So that's really incredible when you think about it, that we're looking at truth just doesn't travel like a falsehood does, and falsehoods are very easy to travel. And so we have to be really careful and cognizant of what we're doing, particularly right now during an election year. We have to be super careful about what we see and what we take as truth and what we take as fact, because most of the time, it probably isn't. So let's look at the next thing here. Post truth is was the 2016 Oxford Word of the Year, and basically what it means is it's denoting circumstances in which the objective facts are less influential. So it's not really the truth; it's kind of post truth. We have our own truth. You know, if I believe it, then obviously it's the truth, and that's not necessarily true. There are things I believe that are probably not true, and we have to look at that and figure out what kinds of situations we're talking about. Number two, we are going to talk about finding sources where we can make a valuable contribution to our research instead of just what we believe. And with you guys writing about something Bennington needs, you're going to have to really watch that truth idea, because there may be things you want, but is it a need, and is it practical, and what kind of facts are truthful about that? Yeah, a swimming pool would be great, but what kind of information is really the truth when it comes down to what's happening with the swimming pool, and so on and so forth. And we're going to talk about searching sources to make sure that they're accurate and provide us with true information. How do we evaluate them to make sure that where they're coming from is the truth? There are independent bias reviewers that are really good, and we're going to talk about some of those and look at what we can figure out for that information. So Ben Franklin actually did this. This is not new information. This is this whole thing of post truth and not really telling the truth is really something that has happened previously and before. And Franklin did it in 1782, where he spread a falsehood about what the British soldiers were doing, and it made everybody angry and upset. And then they wanted to join and be a part of the history of what happened in the American Revolution. But he really started all the people to join him by writing a oh gosh, editorial. That's the name of it. That he put out that really wasn't true about things they were doing. And then everybody got really upset and wanted to have the revolution. So that is really something that happens a lot. And it's not new, been happening since the 1700s. Social media is really bad at this as well. Social media's information can spread so quickly. And one of the big things that happens in social media is what we call clickbait. So when you click on a link that looks like it's a true story, looks like something very useful, then you find that it really isn't. You go in and you read more details, then you find out that it doesn't. I saw a picture of somebody saying, postal worker throws ballots in the trash can. And so, of course, you're just going to click on that and go, oh my gosh, the ballot, see, this is really true. It's happening. Well, when you click on it and you read into it, what really it was in a different country. And so we don't even know what they were throwing in the trash can. You look at the license plate, it's not a United States style license plate. I mean, there's all these things that you can look at and figure out that it's the truth, but it doesn't do that. The other interesting thing that you may or may not know is that your social media, your TikToks, your Instagrams, um, work for the things that they give you and the images they give you work on algorithms based on your interests. All right. So um, you are given information that you are going to tend to want to believe because of the algorithms, because of what you click on, what they see, the words that you post. They begin to provide you with information and feedback that you want to see. My TikToks, when I go to look at TikTok, are almost all crafting sort of things because I think that's what I would be interested based on the algorithms that they are. My son's TikToks are not those. They're something completely different based on these algorithms that are running in the background that you don't even know about, that you can't even control. They're making decisions about you and your interests. So you have to be very careful about how that happens and that spread of information. So and it's really truly just the way we are wired. There's two kinds of biases that information is provided for us that we think about, and the information comes out in a way that we want to hear, we want to see. And the first is called confirmation bias. This is basically that our brains are wired to seek out information that we believe. So we are looking for information that are going to confirm our biases, whether that be my left-based bias, my right-based bias, my middle-of-the-road bias, whatever kind of bias I have, my brain is wired to think that. And we can see that a lot of times if you stop and think about our political climate right now and the things that are happening, we can see this bias in the ways that we have people who are say one thing, something is said, and depending on my bias, I pull different parts of that information out. I find different things. I see different things. I hear different things. For example, if we just take the debates the other night, those people who lean left are saying Biden won. For those people who lean right, say, oh, Trump won. Trump had the best, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Those who lean in the middle are probably saying neither candidate won. And so, because even though everybody watched the exact same thing, their biases help them to lean one way or the other in how they see what happens. And it's really hard sometimes, even as an adult, to sit and think, okay, we're looking at the same event. And the way I see it and understand it is not the way my friend sees it and understands it. And it's really hard to even like, I don't get that. Like, how is that possible? The other is the implicit bias. And this is kind of that same thing where it's how our existing biases and stereotypes affect our understanding. So it just, because of what we believe, we are going to tend to think and understand things in a different way based on our belief systems, our actions, our dances. And it's really unconscious. We don't know um, that we're doing it even based on our biases and based on the things that we have and that we believe. And so that really does make a huge difference in what we're doing and what's happening in a lot of different ways. Okay. All right. So when we research, we need to examine research from and the information on these three pillars of information. The first is that we need to have a purposeful search, basically using search techniques to narrow down our scope and raise the quality of the information that we find on the web. You all know that you can start online doing your English homework, and pretty soon you're down the rabbit hole, and you're shopping for Hey Dudes. It just is it's the way it goes. It happens to me all the time. I start in one place and end up in a different place, and I'm like, how did I even get here? So we need to have a purposeful search. Begin with questions that you want to have answered before you start on the internet, and do not start at Google. You need to start with a purposeful question. What is it that you are looking to find? What kind of information is it that you need to have in order to support your opinions. And I said, do not start on Google because Google should not be the first place you go. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. You also need to have the ability to organize all of the information into your growing library of personal knowledge. So, my son is a news junkie, watches all sorts of things, gets information from all sorts of different places, and is really just full of information that is typically tends to be truthful, surprisingly. But he you have to take that information that you find and then organize it into your library of knowledge. Like, where does it go? How do I understand that? And apply it to your biases. Do I feel that way because of my bias? And I think that that's really important too. With again, we talk about the current situation and all the racial stuff that's going on. What we see and what we hear has to be based on our biases and our experiences, and we have to understand that my experience as a white woman is completely different than somebody else's, particularly in a rural area of the world, is completely different than a person of color who lives in a different part of the world or the nation. That just it's different, and we have to be able to apply that and understand that knowledge and understand our biases that come into play with that. And then we have to be able to share that information and make sense of it. So how do we take that information we find, change it into a comprehensive knowledge of our growing library, and then share it with other people so that they can help make more sense of it all? And so all of those things combined help us to figure out how to have purposeful, good information. And it's not easy, actually. It's very difficult, particularly with everything that we have going on and all of the information that is out there at the moment. So, but facts matter, and you have to make sure you're using the right ones. Somebody may say 2 out of every 5 dentists recommend this toothpaste. Well, they only interviewed 5, and they interviewed the 5 that they were paying to answer questions, and 2 of them recommended it. Like, you have to be really careful about that. Like, yes, it's the facts. Yes, that was a statistic, but what were the statistics? If you went to factcheck.org, all right, it sounds like passing period's just about over, so I'm going to continue. So if you go to factchecks.org and you check in the information that was happening with the debates on the other night, what they came up saying was they would say, yes, the fact is kind of true, but here is the research study, and this is why people found fault in the research study, or, well, they were citing this, which really wasn't true, or this is true. This is the information. And so factcheck.org is a really good place to go and kind of check your facts and make sure that they are unbiased. And there's a media bias chart you can look at to show you what kind of places, who's really biased and who's not, and where they fall on the bias scale, and your beliefs, which, again, your beliefs are your beliefs, and that is okay. You just have to make sure that you have the facts and the information to back that up. So, all right, now we're moving on to part 2, which is finding sources and how we find reliable sources. And so to do this, we have provided vetted sources for you. Vetted basically means that there are experts, there are people who are paid to go through and make sure that the source information is reliable. And so you really can skip that step of searching the reliability, whereas if you just do a Google search, you get 13,000 million, hundred, whatever research tabs or research possibilities, and really based on an algorithm, again, that you have no control over and has to do with money. But in Clever, we pay somebody to help do that. So we're going to switch over to Clever. And there are a couple of places to look for these library resources, all right? Mac and Via is one place that you can click on to find information. So we're going to click on Mac and Via here. And we have a bunch of nonfiction books that you can use. But what we're talking about today is databases, where you're going to find research articles that are already vetted, that you can have to discover information that you want. So Culturegrams deals with other cultures. DK Find Out is really kind of an elementary sort of thing, just encyclopedia-like. And History Lab deals with history. Nebraska Access is free to all public schools in Nebraska and to actually any citizen of Nebraska. You just have to use a driver's license to log into it when you are not at home. Um, and it is a database that has a lot of things. It is EBSCO, I think. But when you go into the research here in school, this will automatically work. If you are at home, you will need a password or your parents' uh, driver's license number. So, but it has all of these different searches provided by a company named EBSCO. So you can research in here and find all sorts of different things. From heritage to master file. I would use First Search or Explora. Those would be the places that I would recommend you guys go for that in Nebraska Access. ProQuest is the same as, it's similar to Nebraska Access, it's just a different company. And so ProQuest and Sears Discover are both provided by ProQuest. When you open those, I don't know what that's saying. Okay. We'll have to have them look into that. Let's see if ProQuest will open. There you go. Okay, it's opening eLibrary. Okay, so Culture Grams eLibrary. eLibrary is searches magazine articles for you with your search terms. And ProQuest is kind of searches research and historical newspapers, those kinds of things. So again, this is all provided here as well for you. And then World Book Encyclopedia is, the World Book Encyclopedia. So you have all of this stuff in Mac and VIA, which is all there and easily located for you. If you need to research that stuff from home, you will need to get passwords, and I have those passwords available for you in the library if you want to come and get them. Those links are also the same as what is here in research links on the library. Again, the same thing. So those are all there and available for you. All right. So we were talking about the research links here that were part of the Bennington Public Schools research. So the other thing that is here on these research links is our World Book, the Culturgrams, the Sears, Nebraska Access. But we also want you to use a citation maker. So this one here is the one that we recommend. It's the citation maker. It's OSLIS, OSLIS. What you're going to have to do here for this is you have the elementary and you have the secondary. We're doing the secondary level one, which is fine. You choose what you want over here as to the kind of book that you're using, kind of information that you're using. So let's say you used a book, then you can tell it how many authors, tell what you were citing. If anybody else is contributors, the versions, this stuff is all in the front of your book, the number, the publisher, and the publication date. All right. Well, it must be thinking that I'm doing book. Yeah. Okay. So author, one author, and the first and last name. I'm citing an entire book. There you go. There's the title. And so as you choose these options, then it populates for you. They've updated it since the last time I looked at it. You can create the citation below. Then you will have it created and you will be able to take that information and download it into a Google Doc. You can clear the form and start over again. Then you'll get that information, or you can cut and paste it into a Google Doc, which your teachers will tell you ABC order by the first word. First line is not indented. Every line thereafter is double spaced. Those are the ways that those work. I am sure your teachers will go over it. So this is on your Clever page, again, under research links, under citation maker. This is also, there's also one that defaults in Google Docs. I've not used it quite yet to figure that out. You can also do research directly in Google Docs as well. So those are all places that we can go to find sources. The next thing that we need to talk about is we need to talk about evaluation. So when you are reading a website, you need to ask yourself some questions about that information. You need to figure out who's behind the information. There's a website out there about Dr. Martin Luther King that really says a lot of false negative information about him. And when you look to find who's actually behind the website, it is a white supremacist group. And so you really have to see who's behind the information. And then you have to look at the evidence. So you have to see if there's multiple sources supporting your information and what the other sources say. And then, can you find supports? If only one person's saying this information, unless it's super new research, it's probably not true. All right. So you definitely need to look through that. Particularly, this is really hard right now with all the virus stuff because there's so many people putting stuff out, and it's hard to figure out what's going on and what's real and what's not. The next thing that we need to talk about is I use this for evaluating sources. Sources should be independent, meaning that they're not being paid by somebody else to do it and find the information, but that they're doing independent information and they're independently researched. The information should come from multiple sources. You should be able to find the same information, particularly for eighth grade or seventh grade research papers. The information should be in multiple places. It needs to be verifiable, meaning that we can look it up, we can find it, and we know what it is. It needs to be authoritative, meaning it needs to be from somebody who has authority to write about this and is informed about this. They know what they're talking about. And then again, if you're putting out information, you need to be willing to claim it. So you need to be named. Um, and that is really important as well. So make sure they have a name. Anonymous is really probably not a good name to go with. All right. So independent, multiple sources, verifiable, authoritative, and informed, and named. All right. So we're not going to do this. You can actually go to Bitly Resources BMS and look at the news story and see how the criteria applies. I will leave that up to your teachers as to whether or not they will do that with you. And that is it. If you have questions, stop by the library. If you need research, if you need the passwords, stop by the library and get that. And hopefully that's provided you with all of the information you need. All right. Thank you.